All right, in this lesson, what we're going to do is we're going to be addressing seams. This is a special lesson that kind of got through in a little late. I just decided after watching this last lesson, or actually kind of participating as it came to an end, just decided that, the seams were just a little bit too pronounced when we said in iterations of 3, even though they were fairly well hidden when we were dealing with an iteration setting of 2 and working with NURMS. And if we went in there and we took our glossiness and adjusted it so this thing wasn't quite so shiny, then we'd basically hide a lot of things. But I'm not really wanting to show you guys how to hide things. What I want to do is show you how we can go in here and go about fixing some of these things. So, and as it is now going on about 2:30 in the morning, Zach is about to die on me.
Well, no, I told Buzz, I can deal with these seams, man. I'll fix them. He's like, no, I want to show them. So I finally gave in.
Yeah, okay, so let's go ahead. And the big areas we need to worry about is, of course, right here. We've got one running down the center. We've got a pretty bad one right here. We've got one running down around the bottom and around the neck area. And really what this comes down to is a bunch of weighting, and perhaps maybe we could go in there and remove some detail, or we could add some detail. There's a lot of things that we could do. But again, I felt that it would be very valuable to see this. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and select this guy, go ahead and come back down over here, and let's go ahead and start out in edges is the way I'm going to be working. And I'll go ahead and turn on show my end result so that I can see the entire thing. And first thing I want to do is go ahead and pick on this area right here. So I'm just going to kind of zoom in there. And we've got this edge that's cutting across, making this triangle right here. And triangles aren't always bad, of course, but sometimes they can cause a pinching type area. And so what we can do is just simply come in here and grab this guy. And then we can come over here up under Edit Edges Rollout and simply remove it. Okay, and you notice that right there changes everything pretty quickly. Now what I want to do to go ahead and start pulling some of this seam out is I want to simply grab this edge. Now you've already seen Zach use weighting once or twice on vertices, but I'm going to use weighting on edges. You're going to find that it actually will affect a larger amount of your geometry quickly, which is really cool. So let's just go ahead and kind of back away here. If we wanted to, we could simply come down here right now and all the way down up underneath our Edit Geometry Rollout and uncheck Show Cage, and that's going to turn our cage off. And then I could simply come back up here to where weight is, and weight of value 1. Let's change the weight to, I don't know, let's try 2. Hit Enter, and let's see, look at that. It's already starting to push the geometry out
a little bit.
Maybe we'll go a little bit stronger with 3, and so that's cleaning it up. Now, of course, we're still running at a very high iteration right now, but we can see that it's not as pronounced as it was. Of course, there are, oops, a little bit too far zooming in down there. There are some things that we could definitely do up under here that would clean this up as well, but let's just go ahead and continue kind of working our way around. Let me bring my edges back, so I'll go ahead and show cage so that I can see what's going on. Then we can just go ahead and come up under here, and let's grab this guy. And a little bit slow here because the iterations are so high.
Absolutely.
And this guy here, and again, we'll just simply come down, turn off Show Cage. It just helps see what's going on a little bit better. And we'll come back up to weighting, and let's go with 3 again. Let's see what we get out of that. And it changes the look of our chin a little bit, but it does indeed start to pull out our edge, especially if we start to pull back. Now, we'd need to come in here and do some manipulation as far as our vertices are concerned, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because at this point you guys have already seen how to go in there to model in, starting with a very low res and then work your way up. And at this point, you know how to go in there and do tweaking. Other areas, of course, we could deal with the bottom just the same. And, of course, we'd need to do some adjusting with vertices in here. Just to make it quick, we'll just jump back down here, show cage again, not to be so repetitive on this, but just to really kind of give an idea. And let's go ahead and grab this guy right up in here as well. And let's just push these guys out also. So just come on, slide back up over here. And we're just going to stick with 3 as that's pushing pretty well. All right. So, of course, we are left with, again, adjustments that are needing to be done in this area, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. We could also come in here and let's go ahead and jump back in here to Vertex, and we could, here it comes, we could also do, again, a little bit of weighting right here if we wanted to as well to see what kind of different effects that we could get. You can see Zach's already got a little bit of weighting going on. If we wanted to go with maybe 0.85 and pull the geometry towards it just a little bit, okay, maybe even a little bit more, 0.95. And see what we can start to get out of that. Okay, so that's starting to clean it up there for us. Just small little adjustments. All right, so that's improved. That's improved significantly. Now let's go ahead and come up here. This area was just really getting me a few minutes ago. Sorry about that. Zach, you did I can't say how awesome of a job you did.
I appreciate it.
As it, of course, becomes early morning hours, we all start to slow down. And with me, it was like, seams, got to get this seam. So in here, you know what? We're just going to do the exact same thing again. I'm just going to come up here and grab edge. And let's go ahead and come all the way up and grab this edge as well. And then we will simply come on down, and let's just see what we can get if we push this out. Perhaps 3 with that as well. Boom, look at that.
Very nice.
And so that just right there distributed things out. Now, of course, what it also did, because we pushed away, is it also kind of hurt some of our volume that was going on right there. So you may find it very useful to come in here and simply grab this guy. And what we'll do is we'll move him in the YZ plane. So I'll just come over here, grab, and just put a little bit back. Got to be real careful, though, because what's going to happen is even though I've pushed away, I'm going to start creating a ridge right there, which isn't something that I'm necessarily wanting to do. And it can be through an adjustment of an edge, or I can simply come in here and grab the vertex as well and then manipulate that to get that little bit of a hump out. So let's just grab this again on ZY, and there you go. Push that back down a little bit. All right, so that's starting to clean up a little bit nicer, getting some of those seams out. And we could go ahead and work this around onto the back as well. It all depends on, how you want to go about doing it. But in this case, I think we've done a pretty decent job of explaining how to go about actually getting this head modeled. Of course, in the back, we're looking at the same type thing, and I'm just getting repetitive if I keep on doing all this here. And
it's totally unlike you to be nitpicky about this kind of thing.
I know, it's just driving me crazy. Just want to make sure I didn't do any movements up there. So let's come back here. We can just grab this area, and I promise I'm not going to keep pushing this one to death.
Thus, this is really cool because in the last VTM you introduced us to weighting, and you showed us how it could come in handy, but here we're really getting a chance to see how it's got a practical use.
Yeah, absolutely. And this may involve, of course, some vertex manipulation as well, just kind of moving this guy around. We could come in here and simply just move it just a tad forward. Sometimes the smallest amount of movements can make some pretty large changes to things. So let's see, how are we starting to look there? The top could be rounded out a little bit more if we wanted to. But it's starting to get pretty close. Let's see. Now, again, I got to be really careful here because, as Zach says, I have a tendency of getting carried away sometimes.
I think the word I used was nitpicky, but that's okay.
So I'm just going to come in here, maybe not quite so much up. Again, our feedback is relatively slow. Of course, I could simply go in here and turn our iterations down a little bit. Let me try moving that a little bit more. Come on, let's get some movement going on here. All right, it wants me to make a larger move. There we go. So just, again, a little bit of a shape going on the head. So let's go ahead and drop back down. Let's come all the way back down into our NURMS area. Let's turn our iterations back down to 2 so the poor computer's not dying quite so bad. This will, of course, make things a lot easier to deal with. We may want to come and grab this guy right here, just kind of looking at him. Let's see how much. Got to be real careful how much we pull here because of what's going to happen back in here. Let's see how things go if we just simply come in here, grab both of these, and let's just pull forward. Okay, start bringing that forward. I just don't like the big, long slope there. So there, that's good. Seams are gone. Front's looking a lot better. That looks good down there. Just a little bit of tweaking required. Up under here, I would definitely probably spend a little bit of time adjusting. We got a bit of a beat going on. We could take this cut right here, bring it back and around. At this point, it just gets into so much time that you can spend with a model, just really perfecting it.
Exactly. As we mentioned before, you can really tweak a model for the rest of your life if you really wanted to.
But, yeah, absolutely. And, if I wanted to come in here and grab this was just something that earlier I was like, I wanted to just kind of fatten his cheeks up. There we go, just a little bit, giving that extra definition.
Absolutely. In the end, what's going to determine the amount of tweaking you do is just going to be like the practicality. If we were animating this guy for a scene and, maybe we were never going to get very close to him, maybe we wouldn't have spent as much time as we did. But, some of these scenes, maybe like if we're doing an animation, we're going to be right on top of him. We've got to be really careful about how our seams look and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Another thing I did want to add, though, is with pulling this guy out to influence my cheek area a little bit stronger right there, this does bring up the point earlier that I was talking about with me. If I don't like having large amounts of space without some sort of edge in there. I mean, the idea, of course, is to keep our low res just that, low res.
Exactly.
But if we did have a cut that ran its way up in here, then I would have something that I could bounce this guy off of without getting into affecting the back of the head. Just little things to point out. So let's go ahead now and just come up here, grab this guy, deselect. So if we just take a look at him, that's pretty much what we set out to model right there. Of course, I do have the iterations down one. And you can see where we could simply spend a lot of time in here tweaking, but we're not going to get into tweaking that strongly. With this, the fact that I'm not seeing any seams no more makes me very, very happy.
Absolutely.
So at this point right here, We would just simply go in there. Zach, you want to, just so we don't have another section, we'll just keep this really simple here, since this one here was a new added-in section. Talk about the eyes real quick.
All right.
Simply use spheres, go in there, take the sphere, shape them appropriately, then you can mirror it over to the other side, apply a material to it, and there you go.
There you go, and you're done.
Yeah, and exactly. With those eyes, you'll end up just parenting them to the skeletal bones, and they'll be ready to
Which
go along with
we'll
that.
get into when we actually have an animation section over this guy much, much later on.
Exactly. So with that, that's going to do two things. It's going to not only conclude this lesson, but I'm going to go ahead and use this as a conclusion for concluding this entire VTM, because we've accomplished everything that I set out to do. Now, the introduction section, we talked about the idea of this is to model a simple head. This is the simple head as we slowly progress into other modeling techniques, such as working with surface, etc. There's cross-section, surface modifier. There's NURBS as well. There's patch modeling. Then we're going to start exploring various other parts, such as a nose or getting more involved into a mouth or different areas more human-like. I wanted to start out with a character's head that was, relatively humanoid in type, but didn't get too bogged down with things like nostrils and all the intricate details involved in actually creating human lips. The ear, which can always bog people down as well. So this I felt would do a really good job. Plus, we've also used the alien for several of the other VTMs that we've done in the past, and I've had many requests come in from people just simply asking, can we have that model? Well, since I haven't been handing it out, that only went out with previous training videos that we actually sold. I decided that, well, let's just go ahead and have them model this. And so Zach has done a fantastic job of presenting it to you guys, and I'm just coming in here kind of concluding it all up, wrapping things up for you now. So in the next VTM, what we'll do is we'll explore finishing this guy. We'll have the rest of his body. He'll have his arms, his hands, feet, legs. We're going to get into ribs, the belly, all of that good stuff. And so a combination of this VTM and the next VTM, and you will have a completed character that we can then use for rigging, for skinning, and for scene placement animation, all sorts of other good things that I can't wait for us to get into.
Absolutely.
And TD stuff as well.
Oh, yeah.
Got some good scripting things in mind as far as character rigging and scripting is concerned. So anyways, you guys get the idea about putting the eyes on there. Surely you can figure out how to modify a sphere to accommodate that. And Zach
Some quick scaling and rotation. It's really no big deal.
And I guess real quick, I will go ahead and now we're at the conclusion part and simply say this. We started out at the very beginning with Zach inside of Photoshop. We expressed how important it is to actually work with these reference images. Zach then showed you some techniques of how you could get these things lined up beautifully inside of Photoshop so that when we came over into Max and we set up our virtual studio, which is basically our two planes that we use for reference. We didn't have to go in there and spend a significant amount of time working with the UVW map modifier, getting things adjusted. Everything just lined up, boom, boom, and we were ready to go. But he expressed the significance. We got in here. We got it all set up. Then he started out with a simple box, and the technique that Zach likes to use is he just works with the one half of the head. He keeps his scene as clean as humanly possible. Other people like to work, of course, with the symmetry already in place so you can see the other head being created as you go. But, I mean, for some beginners out there, I've seen that cause some issues because detail gets in the way when you're working in different views.
Absolutely.
And it's just sometimes too much for a beginner, too many lines going on. And we did express about constantly moving around in a perspective view so that you can kind of stay in tune with what's going on and understand at all times where these lines are actually sitting in 3D space, because if you don't move things around, you will start to lose perspective of what's actually going on.
Exactly.
From there, we went into roughing out the head. We roughed out the eye, actually got the eye pretty set up. Then we went in, added in the mouth to it, and then got into some tweaking and some cleanup. And then finally came around into this section here where we're doing seams, showed you some techniques how we can get the seams pulled out of it, and now we're just wrapping it up. So with that, that's going to conclude 3ds Max version 5 VTM issue number 4.
All right.
So thank you guys very much for your support. Hope you enjoyed this VTM. Can't wait to see what you're capable of doing. Post some images up on 3dbuzz.com. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, everyone.